CenterPoint has lots of settings that you can customize by going to Preferences. So that's under File and then Preferences. And there are just oodles of preferences out here, lots of different things that you can customize and make act the way you would like to. And in this video, I'm just going to go through a couple general preferences, ones that people commonly like to set up when they're first getting started with CenterPoint. The first one I want to talk about is under Accounts and Account Settings. And this is your account number mask. This controls how many digits, the format of your general ledger account numbers. CenterPoint doesn't require to use account numbers, so if you don't want to use them, that's fine. You can ignore this entirely. But if you do use account numbers, you can set it up so it is automatically formatted to the correct length and has any special characters. So if you had a say a 4-digit account number, then a dash, and then 2 more digits, we can set that up here. So right now, it currently has 4 number signs, hash signs here, and that means it's a digit placeholder and it must be numeric and entry is required. So this would require me to enter a 4-digit account number. If I wanted to make that the 4 digits dash and then 2 more, I can put the dash and then 2 more. And this will auto format with the dash so that when I type in an account number, I only have to type in the 6 digits and it will automatically put that dash in for me, or a dot or any other special character. If you don't want to require account numbers to use all of the digits, instead of the pound signs here, you can change it to 9s. So this would only doesn't require you to enter the account number, but it would still, if you do enter it, would need to be numerical and would automatically put that dash in. You could do capital A's or little a's to do alphanumeric, or a question mark would just be letters and would not allow a number entry. Or you can use the ampersand, which gives this free entry. So if you just want to be able to type whatever you want into your account number field, putting in a whole bunch of ampersands would give that for you. The next preference I'd like to touch upon is under the General section and Address Settings. This use an automatic zip code, postal code lookup for addresses. This is set to yes by default, and you'll notice as you're going through the setup of names or customers or vendors or employees, that if you tab through the fields, it skips over city and state and just has you put in the zip code. And when you type in the zip code, it automatically looks up the city and state for that zip and fills it in. If you don't want it to do that auto lookup, if you want to type the city and state in yourself, you would change this to no. And then here, select the default format for addresses. By default, we have the United States address, city, state, and zip. But you can also have the default format be for Canadian addresses, city, province, and postal code, or a foreign address, which is just a address line 3, so you can type in whatever you need for the address line 3. Under Backup, this setting allows you to be prompted to create a backup of your database when you close out of CenterPoint. I think this is a really helpful preference so that you never forget to take a backup and you know you always have a good backup to go to after if something bad were to happen and you lost data. So if this is set to yes, when you close CenterPoint, the backup screen will pop up. It doesn't automatically take the backup. You still have to fill in the settings and click the backup button. So if this isn't a good time to take a backup, you didn't make any changes, you can click cancel, but it makes it really hard to forget to take a backup. Under Base Settings, we have a Database Startup preference. By default, it's select which database to open, so that when you open CenterPoint, you get the little open window and it asks you which database you want to open up. If you would rather it always open the same database, you can do that by saying always open a selected database and then pick that database off your list. Or you can choose always open last database open, and then it will just automatically open whatever database you had open when you closed CenterPoint. Under date settings, I know this is a common one people like to set. By default in CenterPoint, if you're typing in a date field that has a to and from, it always changes the from to the to the same as the from. So if you're going from 1/1/2018, then it'll change to 1/1/2018, and you didn't have to change that to whichever you want your to be from. If you don't want it to automatically change that to, if you would like it to just stay whatever it was and wait for you to change it, you want to select here, make no changes to the to when entering a date in the from date. Under defaults, there's a couple options here people like to set. Use automatic decimal places. That is set to no by default. So in order to put in $5, you type in 5.00. If you'd like it to automatically assume 2 decimal places, so that 500 is $5 and not 500, change that to yes. We have an option here where pressing enter will tab through an entry field just like the tab key does. So if you are more familiar with using enter instead of tab to move between fields, you can change this to yes. Here, the default menu preference. If you want by default when CenterPoint opens, it opens just the plain gray screen, and you've got to go to the menu and choose what screen to open. If you always want it to open the same screen automatically, you can select that here by saying select default menu and just pick which screen you would like to have open by default. And then what I want to touch on just briefly is the online update settings. If you want CenterPoint to let you know when an update is available, this preference set to here, system automatically checks for updates, will make sure you always know when a new update is available. Under printing, this is where you set up how your checks and invoices and everything like that prints. So if I come to checks, you can choose which printer you want to print your checks to. You can choose your check type. So that's if you have a top check and 2 stubs, or if the check is in the middle. The stub type, if you want detail or summary stubs, whether or not you print your check number on the check or if it's pre-printed. Same thing with the company name and address. Does it print on the check or is it pre-printed? And the default number of copies to print. And then we've got similar options for all the different printed forms. So not just checks, but if you have the accounting and you want to set up your invoices, if you have payroll, there's options here for the payroll checks. So just all of the forms, purchase orders, receipts. So you make sure your printing is set up right. And then the last one I want to talk about is database security. By default, CenterPoint does not require any sort of password to get in, and most people want to protect their sensitive accounting and payroll information. So if you want to have a password to get into CenterPoint, this is where you come. It's on the database tab. Check the box that says use database security and then set administrator password. The first time you do this, there's no old password, just type in your new password twice and click OK. The next time you come into CenterPoint, it will ask you for a username and password. The username in this case is administrator and the password that you just created. And then once you're logged in as that administrator, you'll have a whole new menu under File to set up additional security, additional users. You can then restrict access to certain screens by username, and that's all set up. But the first step is to say use database security and create that administrator password. When you're done setting preferences, no matter how many you set up, you can set up all of them or skip around. You only have to click Save once at the end. So now that I've got all of these preferences set up, I'll go ahead and click Save.